Hello YouTube, Tim here, and this should be familiar to pretty much anyone who was born before, say, the mid-90s. It's a Nintendo Entertainment System, though it ain't yo mama's Nintendo. Okay, right here I've got some screws, which I've just taped on, just so I don't lose them. But normally those screws would be holding the thing together. Right now, I cannibalized some parts from it, so it's actually non-functional. And it was never really a Nintendo, at least not once I was finished with it. Here's a peek inside. Now, if that looks like any Nintendo that you've ever seen before, I'd like to hear it. Right in the top I've got some brackets where a solid-state hard drive or a regular hard disk drive could go. I've then got an ITX motherboard inside there. Let me show you. What I had done was put screws at the right spots to go through the mounting brackets, mounting holes on the ITX motherboard. I put a screw then, Loctited it on, put another screw on after setting the motherboard down. We have several USB cables and HDMI cables hooked up, usually to adapters to bring it to the outside here, which was epoxied over and painted to match the color of the Nintendo. The only difference is it's not quite as glossy. I guess I could put a little clear coat on it and that would help. But we have the HDMI cable, 4 external USB ports there, 4 external USB ports here. Here's the original power plug, I think that's what it was anyway, adapted into a spot for the power plug here. You can see a little bit more of it from below. I cut out a pretty good size hole for the CPU fan and heatsink. There's the RAM stick right there. That's the power supply right there. Or at least that's the power adapter. Now that's the supply. The adapter is external, and it just plugs right into that right there. The controls are USB. I have USB controllers that look exactly like original Nintendo controllers. There are adapters that allow you to either use the originals or you could convert the originals to USB. I just thought, heck, let's just go ahead and maintain these right where they are and not replace them with frontal USB ports. Let's just leave that and go ahead and just use regular Nintendo controllers I can put in the side. I mean, regular USB-based controllers. So the power button functions. The reset button does not. I wired that so it goes on. The only thing that I'd really like to do is get to house the solid-state drive, I'd like to get a Legend of Zelda case or some shiny, pretty Nintendo case, preferably to stick that in there. And if possible, if there's enough room, to also build a slot-loading DVD player in there. This is a pretty good home theater PC. It's based on an AMD E350 all-in-one system on a chip. Or not a system on a chip so much, but it's an APU. The GPU and the CPU are combined. And so you don't need an external graphics card for light video work. And the CPU is, it's maybe about as good as an Intel Atom, the older Intel Atom processors. But for all intents and purposes, this is a great machine that, guess what? Plays Nintendo emulators really well. Anything up to, and including the N64, plays beautifully. Beyond that, not so much. I mean, it can play as much as a Wii emulator or a GameCube emulator, but it's very, very slow. It renders beautifully at 30 frames per second, but unfortunately you're playing it at 1/10 normal speed, so it's slow motion. But it's really cool. I have a lot of fun. One of these days, if I can ever get it up and running again, because like I said, I had to rip out the hard drive, the solid-state drive, to use in another machine. I'd like to show it to you guys. It is pretty cool. It's one of those things that I like doing, is just building computers that either look retro or they're special in some way. So that's mine, and I hope you guys like it. Thanks for watching, YouTube.